So actually, more of a selfish question for me, because this was like my favorite post that you wrote. You're probably one of the first people I read when I got interested in this stuff. But I'd just love you to kind of unpack the post you wrote, Climbing the Wrong Hill.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And just sort of how you got the inspiration for that, what the feedback's been around that, and then how have you applied that to sort of maybe, retrospectively some moves you've made.
Yeah. It's funny. So so the idea behind that post is actually comes from computer science, which there's a whole field in computer science. It's called sort of hill climbing, sort of the simple word for it or whatever. But basically the idea, imagine like a terrain with like various hills at different points, and and imagine you're dropped at a sort of random place, and your goal is to climb to the highest point. Now the sort of the naive way to do that is just to sort of say, okay, here I am. Let me walk in the nearest, wherever I am, walk upwards. The problem with that is that you might have randomly landed on a smaller hill, right? And so like it turns out the more sophisticated computer science algorithms add some randomness into it. So there's a very famous algorithm called simulated annealing, and the idea is you sort of like, you're kind of walking up the nearest hill, but then you're also like dropping yourselves around at different places. And the way simulated annealing works is at the beginning of the process, you kind of do more randomness, but then eventually you sort of say, okay, I've now explored 6 hills, I'm just going to climb the tallest one I found, right? So like you sort of switch the algorithm over time. And I was thinking about it, and I think it kind of relates, it kind of is analogous to people's career paths, I think other aspects of people's lives. So if you believe that algorithm, it turns out the optimal, like let's say you're a 21-year-old out of college and you're trying to decide what to do, this algorithm would, for your career, this algorithm would suggest try 2 or 3 or 4 different fields, probably very widely varying fields. So, I have this love for international finance and for journalism and for computer science. And so really kind of experiment there. And then as you sort of find something, then you sort of pursue that and climb that hill. And I just observed, so I as an entrepreneur, I would hire a lot of people who were earlier in their career. And I would see this repeated pattern, which is, I would try to recruit somebody out of Google, let's say, right? And you ask them the question, like, what do you want to do in 5 to 10 years? Which is actually a shockingly revealing question. Like when people come to you for career advice, ask them what they want to do in 10 years, and you'll be shocked at how often what they want to do next doesn't at all align with what they want to do in 10 years. And so like they'll be at Google and they'll say, what do you want to do in 10 years? I want to be running a startup. Okay, and so what do you want to do now? Well, I'm thinking about taking this PM job at Google. Like, how does that get you there? Well, it doesn't, but it pays more and it's got more responsibility. And so I figure that's a good thing. And so the point there being that they're sort of, this person is stuck on a low hill, not the hill they want to be on, but it's so seductive to like have kind of this near-term reward of like, you're climbing this hill. And you see lots and lots of people like, I just would see this pattern over and over.
Yeah, sure.
And so that post was meant to be kind of, to draw that analogy between kind of this, I think there's a lot of opportunity. I think I do this a little bit. I think some other bloggers do, which is a lot of the people who read our blogs are engineering types. And I think there's just a rich kind of metaphorical well is to go and kind of, I think Ben Horowitz does this actually. I think he explains management in engineering terms, sort of like, because an org chart is a form of a machine, and like,
sure.
I think a lot of engineers sort of come at it like, what's this weird human stuff people are doing, right? Like, I like computers, they're doing all this human, but it turns out the human stuff is actually much more engineering-like than you think. And so that was sort of in the spirit of that post was, of sort of trying to explain a career trajectory in a computer science framework that people that read my blog might have some affinity to or something,